and I have gotten into actual arguments with florists and makeup artists over this because they said, well, I contributed to that work, therefore I get the rights to those images.
If you took the photo, you could.
If you're chill, you absolutely get the permission to have the rights to those photos.
Bingo.
You're listening to the Shoot Your Shot podcast with Lindsay and Tim.
Welcome back to the Shoot Your Shot podcast. My name is Tim.
I'm Lindsay.
We are the community-driven podcast for photographers just like you. Thank you so much for being here, liking, commenting, subscribing. I'm running over my words. We have so much to talk about today. Lindsay, hit it.
We are so excited because today we're diving into a major copyright case that could change the game for photographers. And we're also going to talk about what you need to know as a photographer who wants to keep your work protected.
Very important stuff.
Before we get started, though,
we should roll the magic 8 ball.
Absolutely, we should. Because we may have a higher power being the government that takes control of our copyright, but our personal higher power here is the magic 8 ball. So today we're going to roll this magic 8 ball.
Let's see what we got.
We're going to ask her a question and see what she says. It's going to be a yes, no, a maybe, something along those lines.
Burning for the last week, 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh, it's been actually unbelievable.
Is something in retrograde? Is something going to change soon?
Yeah, so Tim and I have been shooting an unbelievable amount. We've been going nonstop. I literally ran in here right after a maternity shoot to come and turn on this lava lamp, which apparently has a 2.5 hour heat time.
Still not running well.
It's still not going super well, maybe by the end of this episode. But anyways, all of that to say, we're running like chickens with our heads chopped right on off.
Yes, and we need it to slow down and stop. And the magic 8 ball says most likely. So
it's going to slow down?
If you're also feeling
Was that the question? You didn't even ask the question.
I want to slow down. Is something in retrograde? Can we slow down eventually?
Okay.
This is it.
Is something in retrograde would be yes.
Most likely.
Is it going to slow down?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to get some clarity. When you're asking the universe and you're asking your higher power, you have to be very specific with your ask.
But I asked 2 questions. Is there something in retrograde?
So you should have shaken it twice.
Is it going to slow down?
No. Anyways.
I feel like the universe is very efficient. She wants to answer one.
Maybe yours is. Mine is slow as hell right now, I gotta say.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so today we're talking about a major copyright case, and this one is a really hot button thing. You may have seen it. We actually got this from our friends over at Petapixel, so thanks y'all for putting this one together and putting it on our news desk. We should have brought back the Shoot Your Shot news for this one next time. Okay, so I'm going to give you a bit of a brief rundown of the story, and then we are going to get into it. So here's the scoop, everybody. There's a photographer. His name's Michael Greco, and he shot Amber Rose. You guys know Amber Rose, right? Amber Rose. For those of you who are not watching, let's just say that she's talented from the waist up and the neck down.
Mucho chichi grande.
Mucho chichi grande. So Michael shot with Amber Rose and in 2017, and she was wearing these shoes that were made by the designer Ruthie Davis. Ruthie Davis allegedly used the images across her website and social media without Greco's permission. We do have a shot of the actual post of how they used this image.
Here's the image here.
They posted a photo. It's a bad screenshot. I was like, they didn't even do a very good job of it. A really rough screenshot from the cover of Inked magazine. They said Inked magazine, August cover girl, the real Amber Rose in at Ruthie Davis heels, fire emoji, exclamation mark, fire emoji, clap at Darius Baptist, buy now at The Real. So they are obviously a for-profit company that is using an image that is protected by copyright, and they have shared it on their social media and on their website. So here's the sticking point. Michael Greco, the photographer, discovered the infringement years later.
Yes.
He didn't discover it until 2021, so he sued in 2021 when he heard about it. He wasn't aware whether he... I'd be interested to hear how he found it, whether it was, I don't know.
We can get a hypothesis after.
Yeah, a Google reverse image search or something like that. Anyways, he found it in 2021, but it was in 2017. The statute of limitations does exist, and it is 3 years long in the United States.
Correct.
A lower court dismissed the case, saying that he should have known sooner. Should have known. Initially, a district court dismissed it because they said that he was a sophisticated plaintiff, which is such a backhanded way of saying you're used to suing people for copyright infringement, because he has from our further research, he has won copyright cases. Good for him. Slay. He makes money on the initial image, and then he makes money on everybody that's stolen it from him afterwards. But the lower court dismissed it, saying that he should have known because he's a sophisticated plaintiff.
Yes.
And he should have discovered the infringement sooner. Duh, bud, you don't have anything else going on but to be searching for who is criminally taking your stuff. That's like somebody robs your house. You don't go back to your house for a year. You come back and you're like, what the heck? I've been robbed.
My car.
And they're like, well, we're not going to charge the person for robbing you, even though we know exactly who it is, because you didn't go back right away. You should have known.
Come on.
So the Second Circuit, we also don't have these same circuits here. I don't understand. So the Second Circuit sounds higher.
Let us know in the comments.
Sounds higher than the lower circuit, lower court. So the Second Circuit actually overturned it, saying that the discovery rule applies. And we're going to get into what the discovery rule is in a moment here.
Yes.
But now Ruthie Davis is appealing the U.S. Supreme Court, saying, well, when should the clock start for a copyright claim? Which is a valid question, which is why we are here yapping about it today. Because the plaintiff, Michael Greco, has said, I only just found out about this. So that would be the discovery rule. And then Ruthie Davis is saying, well, you can't sue me for something in 2021. That doesn't even make any sense.
In 2017, it doesn't make sense. So
and now Ruthie Davis is saying, well, write it, let's make it abundantly clear. Because the one thing I know about the law is that the law does not like ambiguity.
No, it does not.
And it sounds like there is some ambiguity in the United States. We are going to get into sort of why this matters to us as creators, the difference between the injury rule and the discovery rule, what it means if the Supreme Court sides with the injury rule. And, we're probably going to talk a little bit about our own copyright stuff here. So maybe the first thing, Tim,
let's talk about
what are your thoughts? How would this kind of a thing impact us as creators? So you, for instance,
let's do it.
You're obviously a wedding photographer,
yes,
but you also do commercial work.
Correct.
So we do commercial work all the time for products, for vendors that we have done work for, where they have limited licensing usage.
Yes.
And then we also have wedding images that definitely could be ripped off and claimed as somebody else's work, or there are so many vendors involved, right? Wedding dresses, shoes, veil, makeup.
Jewelers.
The more that our clients start becoming their own content creators and their own PR people, the more I'm seeing this, the more I'm seeing usage, whatever, getting widespread.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this as just like a copyright as a person with stuff that's copyrighted? As a person with stuff that's copyrighted, first of all, may I ask you a more direct question? Speaking of the universe, and we need to ask better questions. Did you know that there was a 3-year statute of limitation on copyright?
I had no idea.
That was news to me, buds.
I had no freaking idea.
So,
majority of clients I work with,
I'm tired. It might take me more than 3 years.
Especially if you are Michael Greco, and it looks from his Instagram account. We'll post it down below. He does a lot of commercial and band work. He did a lot of photos for bands in the 70s and 80s. A lot of the punk and the Britpop movement. And he does a lot of commercial work to this day. So I imagine the volume of work he's putting out into the universe far outweighs his ability to police that content and where it goes. You know what I mean?
That's a whole job.
I'm sure he has contracts with all these customers and clients that he works with that are like, hey, you have X amount of time to use this photo. License is good for up to X amount of days or weeks or months, depending on the campaign. But to go back and police all those things as an individual, that's got to be tough.
That's kind of tough. Yeah. Which is why, obviously the initial conversations with our clients really is super important. In this case, this wasn't the client at all, right?
Yeah.
Inked Magazine was the client. They would have paid him for these images.
Yep.
And really, Inked Magazine also has a leg to stand on when it comes to the copyright infringement. But it obviously, as the person that created the image, you have a much stronger argument for copyright infringement. So first things first,
please,
because I freaking love talking about copyright. I do. I don't know why. It just lights me up. So I think that the first thing we need to do is define what copyright, like what is covered. And so it is different. As you guys know, we're Canadians. In Canada and the US, the actual definition of what copyright is, I think, is pretty much the same. Maybe there's more of a niche or a nuance if you're like actually a lawyer. But for our purposes here on the Shoot Your Shot News, the definition, we're going to go with it being the same. So we're going to define copyright basically as the legal right to control your original creative work. And so what is covered by copyright? So things like photos, videos, written content, yes, even your website copy.
Come back to that.
And what's not protected, ideas, short phrases, and generic slogans. So let's give you an example. Let's give you an example from a website, written copy wise. My entire bio is copyrighted.
Yes.
But the slogan at the top of it that says, best wedding photographer in Kitchener, that's not copyrighted. I do not have that.
Yeah. Unless you're McDonald's and like, I'm loving it is your catchphrase.
Of course.
There's not much you can do.
And that would be a trademark, right?
Exactly.
And so that gets into a totally different thing once you start getting into trademark law, which I mean, we can get into. We've got all day.
We're not lawyers, but we'll talk about it all day.
We'll talk about it.
And then lawyers in the comments will be like, you guys are fucking
You guys are freaking stupid. I have gone through the trademarking process for my clothing line, and it's fun. It's interesting. It's actually really fun to look up what trademarks people have, because people have their own trademarks, and it's really, really funny for the things that like, why did you spend money and time on trademarking that? Yes, Tim is showing you a sweatshirt, George and Bay. You picked the most wrinkled one.
I did.
One that's like, I think it's actually dead stock too. So that's really
good.
Can't
buy this, guys. Extra small.
georgeandbay.co. You guys are interested.
But BAE.
But BAE. And actually the reason why I copyrighted it was because I ran into an issue with other smaller brands that were using the terminology. And to which I said no. I came up with that 100%. No one was using it before. I know that for a fact. So trademark is obviously different. I think for the purpose of this, talking more about imagery.
Yep.
I personally have only had my written copy taken from me, which doesn't say a lot for how good my quality of my photos is. But
well, I mean, no, that's not fair to you, Lindsay. I mean, you had a brand steal one of your photos and use it on Instagram.
That's true. That's true. It was an iPhone photo, so really sick. Yeah. But okay. So now that we've kind of defined what is and what is not cop. So the other thing that I want to say is around ideas, because this was a thing that we actually had, and I think we've talked about this before. We had my client / our intellectual property lawyer, Jason. He came into our studio and taught a copyright and trademark
legalese,
sort of a legal workshop that we had here for creatives. And one of the things that I found really interesting is that obviously, and it makes total sense, is that ideas cannot be copyrighted.
Yes.
So while we may be butthurt that someone has taken the idea for your styled shoot or
urban golfing, let's say something
urban golfing, something so specific, that would be a crazy thing to rip off, and who would do that? But if somebody were to do that, it unfortunately is not a copyright issue. You can hate that person now, and you can
all your heart.
you can say they suck, and you can talk about them on your podcast. But unfortunately, ideas cannot be copyrighted. There are certain ways for you to make it more clear that something is yours and it's like inherently yours. It's just by using it over and over and over again in many, many contexts in many ways. But like when it comes to photos, it's really sick. The second that you take a photo and the second that it is written to film or memory card, it is your copyright. You own it. And also to even clarify that even further, if I give you my camera and you take a photo on it and we know that that was your photo, then you still own that copyright regardless of whose camera it's on.
Very similar to in Vegas when if you're the one who pulls the arm on the slot machine and it hits jackpot, you win the jackpot regardless of who put the money in the slot.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that. That's a good one.
So if you're playing with someone else and they hit the jackpot, if they push the button, they're the one who wins.
So you're saying I should walk around to people's machines and just pop the button real quick?
They have to fight you, so it might be a problem.
I don't want to be fought. I don't want to be fought in Vegas.
But if you're gambling with someone on a machine together, it's whoever pushes the button wins the money.
Wow, I'm glad that you and I have not played by that rule because
we haven't won.
Well, we don't win ever actually. So there's
no one wins in
But
Vegas.
usually we take turns hitting the button when we're playing together. So, here's some real world examples and where
Please.
this can work, because as wedding photographers, I think our copyright is infringed upon actually every single day.
Most days.
Literally every single day, my work is infringed upon.
Yeah.
We have to decide when we care. I do care most days. But there are things that we can do, to try to mitigate and minimize the risk out there. So in the early days of my business, people would literally just take photos from my client and post them on their hair and makeup and their
website, their Instagram, all those things.
I would
Yeah.
show up to like a wedding venue for
See a printed book of your
and
things.
there's I'm like, oh, there's an 8-foot banner here of my photo. My name's not anywhere on it.
No.
I surely wasn't paid. I'll go over the example of the photo that was stolen from me that I actually did go through like an actual a copyright lawsuit with them over, where we tried. We did our hardest. I had a photo lifted from my Instagram that was just a picture of a wing of a plane over the Bahamas. And I'm sure I have definitely talked about this on here before, but in case, I don't know, maybe it's your first day. Sorry. Welcome. And this company that no longer exists called Serengeti, but they made t-shirts. So they spelled it like Serengeti. Anyways, they were all a bunch of white dudes with absolutely no personalities. Their entire Instagram feed was made up of stealing the works of other creators.
Wow.
The entire feed. Like literally I don't think there was any creative, like actual original content on it at all.
Yeah.
So the funniest thing was, though, that they took the photo and then they tagged me in it. And that's where I think a lot of wedding vendors and wedding venues and clients themselves, they think that that's passable because they've tagged you in it. All that did was actually my lawyer, Jason, told me at the time, he said it's kind of like walking into someone's home, robbing them and falling asleep on the couch.
Yeah.
Criminals aren't smart about it.
Hey, I'm going to take this. After I take a nap.
have a quick nap here first. So they tagged me in it, and that's how I knew that they had taken it. And so I reached out to them. The content in the post was not my thing. I was not happy about it at all. So I reached out to them. I said, this has to come down. And they replied right away. They called me the wrong name. They said they were gonna remove it. They said they were gonna pay me for it. Every single time I reached out, and they said, yes, we will do it. We will do it.
Until they stop responding. Which
is what we call willful contract infringement or willful copyright infringement. We willfully did that, right? This Davies, I don't know that Ruthie knew what she was up to. Based on the post, I couldn't say if that was something that somebody really sophisticated knew what they were doing there, if that was just a mistake. But I digress. Willful or not, copyright infringement is copyright infringement. And as wedding photographers, unless you want to lose a lot of sleep and piss off a lot of people, it's not a lot of fun to be chasing after people over, hey, you tagged me in that photo, but you don't own the copyright over it. Frick, it's somebody's wedding photo. Take a chill.
And that's the thing. I feel like so much of what we produce for the majority of our clients, which are wedding clients, is personal photos of meaningful moments that aren't necessarily going to end up on a billboard for Coca-Cola. We're not dealing with McDonald's here. We're not shooting for McCain all the time, although we'd love to come back, McCain. Please reach out to us. We love working with you.
I eat your fries every day.
One of every fries. One of every fry in the world is a McCain potato. So
one of every fry?
One of 4.
Thank you.
One of every 4 fries is a McCain potato.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify. Everybody needs to know.
Every fry is a McCain potato.
Everyone needs to know the potato stats, clearly. But you're right.
It's one of those things we don't think about because we're not concerned about that. We're more concerned about delivering beautiful images for a gallery for our clients for their walls in their homes, and that's not something that particularly comes up every day. We don't deal with this often enough as primarily wedding photographers.
That we probably aren't thinking about it like a commercial photographer.
So when other businesses come along that are in the wedding space, florists, jewelers, gown makers, but seamstress, they see our content like, oh, well, that's. She was cool to share with it online. Everyone else is sharing online. I will take for me and share online and then promote my business.
And the thing that they are thinking is, well, I contributed to that.
Yes.
So that's a thing that I have heard.
Dress.
That's a thing I have heard, and I have gotten into actual arguments with florists and makeup artists over this because they said, well, I contributed to that work, therefore I get the rights to those images.
If you took the photo, you could.
If you're chill, you absolutely get the permission to have the rights to those photos.
Bingo.
But if you're a dick about it, like there's no world in which you're getting these photos.
And the other thing is that there's the there's the implication that maybe they'll start trash talking you because you don't like to share your photos with them.
100%.
Because it's such a tight knit community, especially in the community we work in, live in. Wedding photography is like, it's mostly who you know in the community.
You're afraid that if you do get into that argument, you say, hey, you can't use that photo or you can't use it in that way, right? Because maybe you're okay.
Up,
and maybe you're okay with them using it in like a really nicely curated reel or a carousel. But what if they put it on their website with a bunch of shitty text over it, they put a filter on it and they don't tag you in it, or they do, even worse, they do tag you in it.
And I look like a Joe Schmo with shitty photos.
Your copyright is being infringed upon whether you enjoy the post or whether you don't enjoy the post. It just determines how much do we care?
Yeah.
Is this a thing that we're going to be bothered about? This is a little bit of a digression before I move on to the next thing, which is the thing that has gotten me away from having that happen with wedding clients and wedding vendors a lot is the PicTime vendor sharing capability now. So on PicTime, instead of just sharing the link like you do with your vendor or like you do with your clients. So on PicTime, you can share with your clients. So you'd say, I'm going to send this to the bride. And then it has client invited options. So they get a different link and then photographer invited. And photographer invited is what I used to do, but it just gives them access to literally everything. And then the vendor thing is so freaking cool because it actually has vendor terms of usage in it. And it very specifically, first of all, it only has web resolution download capabilities on. So nobody's printing an 8-foot banner with that unless, well, it's going to be terrible. But it makes them agree to the terms before they get to access the gallery. So at the very least, you have some leg to stand on when your copyright is infringed and you say, hey, I gave you usage, but only if you followed these specific
guidelines.
Set of rules.
And they can never say, I did not know.
And your set of rules can be literally anything that you want them to be. So it could be, I want to be tagged and I want, like mine says I want to be tagged on the image and in the caption. Because a lot of the time they'll do insane things with like 30 people tagged. And I'm like, well, who created this image? I want it to be, I literally type out in the terms what I want it to say. Make it dummy proof. People want to follow the rules. They just need to have an expectation given to them.
Before we move on to the cost, the money, the dineros, let's take a quick break. Hear from one of our sponsors. Quick ad about Imagine AI. If you are struggling with your editing consistency and getting things out the door quickly for your clients, click the link below. You can get 1,500 free edits. That's basically a free wedding.
Hell yeah, that's
Using
like two weddings if you're not a sloppy color.
If you're not a loser. Click the link below. You can learn all about Imagine, how it can help you streamline your editing process, create consistent edits across your entire gallery, and make your clients happier.
10-4. Let's talk about the real penalties when it comes to copyright infringement. So, I mean, again, you know, we're probably not throwing out infringement cases against people too often.
No.
I have had to send DMCA takedowns to people
What does that
again
mean?
on my written work because no one cares to steal my photos. You know what? Actually, I've never actually searched to see if somebody is stealing my photos, so I don't want to know.
We can talk about that after,
I don't want to know.
There's a good link for that.
Yes, we do have a good idea for
that. What does
that.
it mean,
DMC?
DNC? What'd you say?
So it's called a DMCA takedown notice. So when you're trying to send somebody your own personal notice, you don't want to go to a lawyer. You're like, I want to be a little bit chill about this, but I don't want to be that chill. I want to come into this strong. I found that a photographer in the United States had copied literally my entire website.
Wild.
Like the entire freaking thing. It was so brutal. They did use a couple of photos
of your work?
Of my own photos.
Why?
Yes, that's actually
That's
true.
That's outrageous, dude.
It was truly insane. I reached out to them and asked what the fuck. They said it was my website designer, which is the absolute that, like, I assume this Ruthie Davies, whatever, they were probably like, it was our social media person. I don't give a shit who it was.
Fuck, dude.
It's on your website and it's my work. And you presumably, as the person hiring a website person,
should have taught them.
You should know what the copy is on your own site. And also lies, because I don't give a shit how big your business is. You're not having a website person make your entire copy. And I think you would know if you took the photos or not that are on it. So they did that. They said, I'm going to look into this. Of course, looking into it never changed anything because they were literally too uncreative. They were lacking so much creativity to fix their website. So they had said, it's going to take me some time to deal with this. I was like, the website should have been down yesterday. Like, that's crazy. So I ended up sending them a DMCA takedown, and it's actually really interesting. It was a really fun process. You can just file it yourself.
Oh, that's nice.
You can download a form.
Okay.
It shows you the template that you are required to put in the DMCA takedown.
Right.
And you send it to them in a PDF form. I don't think that I filed it. I'm Canadian, so like I don't think I actually filed it with any like governing
agency?
body or anything like that. I figured a document of this type would scare them enough to take it down, and it did. And in it, you show evidence. So I was literally like, here's a screenshot of my website, and here's a screenshot of your website.
One of these
and
things
here's the dates
is a lot
that
like
my
the other.
website went up, and here's the dates yours went up. Actually, one thing that we don't talk about in this is there's a website called Wayback Machine.
Oh, I love the Wayback Machine.
Super janky.
If you want to go check out a website, what it looked like in like 1999.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It archives photos of websites. Like, I don't think MySpace is still up, but you could have gotten to see who's your top 8. You know what I mean? So there's
so funny.
There's all these different. There's just one. What are we talking about? There's only one website, Wayback Machine. It's the best.
Yeah. So Wayback Machine. So basically, if you wanted to prove that your content existed on a certain day, it takes snapshots of every website on the internet.
Yeah.
You should actually, every photographer listening to this should go and search yours now, because it only starts really indexing it after you first searched it. And then it will go back. I think that's true. I believe that. Or it starts indexing them more frequently once you have searched it out. So, and it takes snapshots, like I want to say every 6 months or something like that, right?
It depends on the website. Some of them are more infrequently, but yeah, the bigger ones definitely get a lot more snapshots.
So I have used that as a tool to say, hey, so I added this to my bio and then you added it to yours. Because for a while I had like little stalkers in town, like in our area, that every time I updated my website and I would post it on social media, within a couple of weeks, everybody else's website was changing. And I was like, what the heck is happening here? So there is a DMCA takedown thing. So, but getting into the actual dollars and cents of it, because you're thinking to yourself, is this even worth it for Michael Greco to say, hey, you stole my image and you put it on Twitter? In fact, it is worth it. So in the United States, there's civil penalties, and the civil penalties are up to $30,000 per photo, up to $150,000 if willful.
So what do you mean by if willful?
So I think that means that if there are up to $30,000, but it could be if they used it across multiple different things.
Right.
So I would say if they use that across multiple different platforms,
Instagram, website,
all of the different uses that they have infringed upon. One thing that we will note is that there's a 3-year statute of limitations on it from when you discover the use is currently what we're going on. But that's actually what this entire...
That's what's up for debate.
That's what this entire thing is up for debate on. Is it after discovery, or is it after it was created, which would be considered injury? So those are the two different things that they're kind of currently saying. So instead of saying, so I don't know, I punch you in the face.
Ow.
And we're going really literal on injury. I punch you in the face. You have 3 years from that day, if we're going on these statutory terms or limitations, I mean. You'd have 3 years from that time to bring civil charges about. However...
Not true.
Say I punch. No, I'm talking about punch. That's not true. I'm saying I'm punching. I'm saying that's obviously not true.
Okay.
I'm saying if we're talking about copyright.
Yes.
A copyright.
If it's a copywritten punch to the face, like Lindsay's registered her hands as lethal weapons, and everything she punches, whether it's drywall or human beings or, I don't know, bales of hay, and that imprint that she leaves is a copyrighted thing, then I would have...
But when it comes to assault, it's a different story. I'm not talking about literally assault.
Please don't hit anyone.
I don't want to talk about that. Okay, I complicated it when I said injury.
You did a Tim thing. That's what I usually do.
I did a Tim thing. I made it really confusing. I made it so freaking confusing.
I go as far as I can to the fence and think, what's over here in the garbage pile we can put together to make a car? And
should we make a podcast of the most nonsense possible? We should. So let's take it back to logic and reason.
Oh, why?
Let's go
I don't
based
like that
on I know, I'm sorry. Let's go on the discoverability model.
Perfect.
I think it's fairly straightforward.
Yes. You
discovered it in 2021. It happened in 2017. you discovered it in 2021, he has until 2024 to file.
Yes.
If we're going on the injury model, from the time that injury, which is like not literal injury,
Not a punch in the face.
We mean that your copyright was infringed upon, and that
Yes.
was the injury that we are speaking of.
The monetary
that happened in
injury.
2017.
Yes.
You have until 2020 to file.
Correct.
So now they're saying you were 1 year out. In Canada, okay,
Bit
wait,
different.
one more thing I want to say on the United States
Please.
sort of thing, because this is critical. You actually have to register your work in order to claim statutory damages.
So if something happens to your work, it gets illegally used in a situation. If that work is not registered before you file that complaint, that suit, that thing,
Yeah.
null and void. Must be registered first.
And not only does it have to be registered first, it has to be registered first before the infringement takes place. Okay, so we did a bunch of research on this because
my
we were
God,
like, what do
dude.
you mean?
We had so many questions.
So yeah, I have
We're here to answer them for you.
I have a lot of questions. We are going to answer them next, but first we're going to go to Canada because Canada makes things simpler. Okay,
Yes.
Canada civil penalties up to $20,000 per photo if used commercially. You can actually sue someone for non-commercial use for anywhere from $100 to a $5,000 cap.
What would that look like? What does non-commercial use of a photo look like?
So that would be something like you as a bride
Hmm.
are really in love with somebody else's wedding photos and you use them as inspo. And instead of pinning them, Pinterest is such a dark and dangerous place when it comes to
Yes.
copyright. And I don't even feel like we have time to get into Pinterest. But say instead of putting it on your Pinterest board, you take a screenshot
Okay.
and you put it on your own Instagram. And you say, I love this photo and this is my dream wedding. That would be
Yeah.
personal usage of somebody else's wedding imagery.
What if that person who posts it is an influencer? Could they go through their? Would it? Would
I think
they
it would
argue?
be commercial.
Okay, still
It'd have
commercial.
to be commercial
Okay.
if you're using your social platform
Right.
as and that's where it's going to get weird,
Yeah,
right?
it's a gray area in that
yeah,
space.
it's going to get weird
Okay.
for sure when we start getting into like, well, did you post that? Like, I have lots of my clients that have like 3,000 to 5,000 followers.
Yeah.
That would not consider themselves influencers at all.
Okay.
But I think that they would get charged commercially if they were, you know,
Absolutely.
using photos from
Yeah.
a brand or something like
For
that.
sure.
So, it makes it much easier in Canada. You do not have to register it. It's just inherently yours as copyright. And we do also in Canada use a discoverability model with 3 years, but from when you knew or when you should have known, which I think is a sneaky little weird thing that they've thrown in there. And again, I think it's a little bit ambiguous. But when you should have known, here's what I think that would look like.
When you get tagged,
Someone tagged you in
yeah,
it.
you had a
and you're like, well, you
notification
should
of
have
it.
known.
You liked it, let's say. Mm-hmm. Whether or not it's you or someone
So
just
they're
using your
saying,
account.
well, you should have known that because someone at your company knew
Yeah.
that you were. Now, let us get into it, Tim. Do you want to talk about copyright when it comes to how things are actually protected? Like basically, my question is, are works automatically protected, or are these things like in the US, like we have to register them in order for them to be protected? Is that true? Is that fake news?
Well, as I understand it, as the internet read it to us earlier today.
Yes, we've learned.
If you are a creative person, you take a photo, you write something, you create a work of art, it's automatically protected by copyright.
Both in Canada and the United States.
Correct.
Okay.
Different in France. If you take a photo of someone in France, they own that copyright, which is fucking weird. Isn't that strange?
Oh.
Paris street photography is not a thing because if you take a photo of someone in Paris, they own that photo.
Their face.
Yeah. Their likeness,
Interesting.
which is wild. Yeah.
I don't know about that. I'm going to need to research
wanna
that one a
research
bit
that?
further. Yeah, I'm going to need to research that one a bit further. So you don't need to register for
No.
the protection in order for the protection to exist. However, why you do need to register is because you can't sue for statutory damages or attorney's fees unless the photo is registered before the infringement or registered within 3 months of the publication. Without registration, you can still sue, but only for actual damages, which are obviously harder to prove, like an actual damage that's done to you, or injunctive relief, meaning that you can get them to stop using it. The cost to submit your images is $55 per submission, and you can batch submit or
Which
you
I
can
love.
submit one image.
When I
at a
heard that
time.
number, I was like, For an image like that's going to rack up a lot of like money
Yeah.
just for like things that may not
100%.
happen.
But you could
the
upload
fact that you can
20,000 photos
yeah,
at
you
a
could do-
time.
and they
you're built on
suggesting
your
like every
internet.
a lot of people do like monthly or quarterly. So in the US, they'll like go through 6 months of photos they've taken for commercial clients. And be like, okay, I'm registering these 6 months worth of photos for $55.
And if you're a
that
wedding
way they're
photographer
protected.
and your images are published,
Yes.
even on a site like say PicTime or PixieSet or whatever, that means that your images have been published. You should be, as an American photographer,
Yeah.
be submitting them for copyright protection, so that, God forbid, a commercial use does come around and it actually is being used without your permission.
Yeah.
Then you can actually get real damages up to $30,000 per image and per usage, which is pretty insane. Like, wow, what a nice payday. I'd
What
be
a
like, honestly,
delightful
could
thing.
somebody steal from me sooner than
There's a way you
later?
could like set a bear trap for someone to like start stealing your images.
Yeah,
It sounds horrible.
The
but
other thing
it's a
that
nice
I do
payday.
want to say is, like, you actually have to go through this process, and having
Yeah.
gone through it, it's
You've done
not
this.
fun.
It's not a fun thing.
It's not fun.
No.
The vibes are bad.
Yeah.
You know, like the vibes are really bad. You feel really bad every day.
And as a creative person, it takes you away from the thing you love doing, which is just making more work.
Which
so.
is like basically my question to Jason. His name's Jason Hines. So if you're in Canada or the US, he's a partner at Breskin Parr. So if you ever run into any sort of copyright or whatever trademark kind of things, he's your guy. But Jason's like a totally like patently reasonable human being. And
He's
he
lovely.
was like, well, we have to decide how much this is worth to you. He's like, personally, like, I think you should give it a shot because they infringed your copyright in both Canada and the US by putting this on Instagram.
Yeah.
You're a Canadian photographer, so you sue them in Canada. He's also a lawyer in the US, so
Yep.
I could have sued him in the United States. He's like, this is a pretty good day, to be honest. The issue is the company actually has to have money. So if you look up Serengeti, you'll see that the company ceases to exist.
Look them up on Wayback Machine. Maybe they're there.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
They don't exist. They had to close down the company.
Okay. For whatever reason.
I
Maybe
wish
they
I
were just stealing a bunch of images and maybe they got a bunch of cease and desist from a lot of
yeah.
people.
Maybe they got like literally hundreds of bad reviews on their website. Who
Maybe
would know?
t-shirts aren't a good investment.
They had literally dozens of Better
Stolen.
Business
Really?
review, better
Oh,
like
shit.
whatever, like 1-star people being
Okay.
like, they never delivered my products. Like they're
Wow.
just overall like a shitty company. So that's when you have to say, am I trying to get money from a stone here?
Yeah.
Like this is not worth my
Not
time.
worth your time, right.
But if like a company like Skims say
Yes.
started doing that, I'd be like, well, hell yeah, I'm gonna go
yeah.
for it.
They have a
Kim's-
legal department. They have their
and Kim's bank is massive.
yeah. They have the whole checking account based on money they have to pay. Like there's
Yes.
this is built into their business. Is this kind of lawsuit stuff?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So and you know that's basically what Jason does on a more normal scale. He's not usually going after people for one photo for a photographer he knows, but
Bingo.
But he is typically like company to company. They're fighting over who owns what IP. Blah blah blah.
Yeah. Big implications, dude.
To answer your question, yes, your works are automatically protected, but if you're an American photographer, you should be submitting them.
Register,
Having a thing on the bottom of your website, and I see this all the time, it says
Mm-hmm.
protected by copyright. Well, we know that.
No doy.
You don't have to do that. You have to submit your images. Your images are not, they are protected,
Yep.
but they are not really enforceable. Like, what's the point? You can have it taken down.
Yeah.
You can get relief and have it taken down. But that's not really super useful for us.
Let's talk about the takeaways.
Let's
talk
talk
about the
about
advice
some
we
takeaways.
found, we think we agree with, and we think that you can use going forward. So, as Lindsay mentioned, I can't talk today. You want to make sure you're registering your work, whether it's every quarter, every 6 months, maybe once a year, or maybe after you do like a giant portfolio piece for a company you're really excited with. You work with McDonald's, you work with Coca-Cola, you work with Pepsi in some kind of cola war, and you're like, hey, we should put together a bunch of images, and then you're like, hey, maybe I should like register this batch. Do it. It's $55.
The other reason, and I know we probably should have talked about this, I was going to mention it when you were saying that our work is often for our clients,
Yes.
which means it's sentimental and it's meaningful. The last freaking thing that you want is for an image that's super meaningful to your client to get spread elsewhere. There's privacy issues here at play, right? Because maybe they were totally comfortable with you sharing it on your socials. They weren't comfortable with all the vendors sharing it. And I actually just made a post on both my wedding blog and family blog about privacy and why I think it's so important. It's going to continue becoming even more important with photos being used for AI models, right? Our clients want to know that their work is protected.
Yeah.
And the best thing that you can do is making sure that if someone does something shitty, that you can actually do something about it, and that you could tell your clients, like, I actually take my own copyright very seriously.
Yeah.
So
And
anyways,
people
that was
want to
just
know
an
that.
aside there.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Like, that's such an important thing we don't think about. Like, people will say, like, oh, of course you can use my photos for marketing or whatever you want to do on Instagram. I would love to post on Instagram. But if it goes viral and becomes a whole thing, like the wedding dress, where the
There's
bride
a line.
was sewn
people
into.
People are totally fine with their images being
Until
shared.
like, oh, I'm on MSNBC. My photo's on MSNBC. What's happening
and now?
now?
There's thousands of comments under it, and like
now
that
I'm
becomes
attacked.
a different thing.
Yeah, now I'm being threatened by Al Qaeda. Like it's a whole thing.
We don't want
Who
that.
was it? Who was after you? Was it ISIS? It was ISIS.
ISIS,
They were
yeah.
coming for you. Good times.
Everybody
Good
that's hearing
grief.
that story for the first time is like, what the hell?
Go back.
We're talking about that. We talked about that in the episode on going viral as a photographer.
Yes.
Anyways,
Another thing you can do is set up Google Alerts or use reverse image search tools. We discovered this one. It's called Pixie, Pixsy.
yeah,
It's a
we
great
cannot.
tool.
We can't vouch for them as like
Not a sponsor.
whatever. We haven't used them ourselves personally, but we did discover this.
It's a pretty cool way to reverse image search your content.
So essentially, you can upload your images,
Mm-hmm.
and it will constantly be scrubbing the internet
Yeah.
for that photo and its likeness, which is really, really cool.
watermarks are interesting.
And a Google alert is really cool because you can put your own name in there.
True.
And it feels weird. I get Google alerts for my name all the time because there's a few of us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, cool to see what she's up to.
I
But
wonder if alt words would work. Like if you put metadata into your photos, would it look that up as well?
oh,
probably might.
interesting. It's a good question.
Something to think about.
Something to think about.
Do you
But yeah,
watermark
set
your
up-
work? You know, I don't watermark.
No, I used to, and no, I just think it's not
For you, not for
a
your clients.
2025 vibe, my friends.
No.
I think it's really dated. Unfortunately, there's no cute watermark out there.
No.
They really tried it. There were those like nice watermark companies for a
Yeah.
while. It was not nice. Looks not good.
It's very much like a bygone thing of like printing work. I feel like it's a thing where like you'd sign art, you'd hang it on a wall. The same is true for
And to
images.
what end? Every single Instagram photo I'm going to put up
No,
has going to
dude.
have a thing on. Like we make reels that have 60 photos in them. I'm not going to do that. That's just not. It's not my thing.
Not
I'm never
tenable.
going to do
Not
that.
a good idea. But that's one idea. It's not a great idea, but you could do it if you if you hate yourself.
It's also just way too easy for people to remove watermarks.
Yeah.
Like there's literally apps out there
Every
now that
phone.
remove watermarks. It's insane.
I tried the touch up on my iPhone. It works so well.
Oh, to remove a thing.
Yeah, I got rid of a pipe in the back of a photo of Kelly in
Do you know
Mexico. It
what's
looked
so
great.
funny? Taylor's still using old, like he'll pull old photos that he doesn't. He's like, what hard drive is that on or whatever, right? He doesn't know what hard drive it's on, so he'll go to his website. He'll
Yeah.
download it and he will scrub off his watermark in Photoshop so that he can use the photo
Because he just want
again.
to dig through his. I get that. Dude.
No, and you don't want your watermark on
No.
it from 2012, whatever,
No,
right?
no,
So that's kind of a funny one.
Great way to learn how to do this, which is a takedown notice, would be go through a lawyer if you have the money, resources, or just ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It'll word you a really
For
nice.
the most part, realistically,
Okay.
the most part, what we're going to run into, if you run into somebody stealing your shit, first of all, so rude.
Yeah.
Get real, buds. It's not that hard. You call yourself a creative and you're stealing website copy, you loser.
Freaking idiot.
You loser. It's not inspiration if it's theft.
That's right.
That should be the title of this. It's not inspiration. It's theft. And it's funny because that's usually what people say. If they don't say my website or my website designer took it, they say I was using it as inspo.
It's just heavily inspired. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm
outta
feeling
here.
inspired to sue you. So the first thing I would say is come into it chill. Ask them, hey, what's this?
Yeah.
They're going to poop their pants. They
Yeah.
are going to poop their pants. So you send a screenshot of their website and it's going to come from your name, right? And they're going to be like, ugh. If you really want to make them poop their pants, send your website in a screenshot along with it and say, does something look familiar? They're probably going to freak out enough to
Oh my
make
God,
this.
Lindsay's emailing me.
I didn't know she knew who I was. The funny thing is, I think that people that follow us think that we don't know, like we don't. I see all your shit. Like I know what's going on here. It's so weird. Anyways, again, I will say if you're gonna steal from somebody, don't steal from people in your own town. It's so silly.
Yeah.
But just reach out, say, hey, what's going on here? If it's a fellow vendor, if it's somebody in your local area, go in with as much kindness as you can for a number of reasons. But for the main one being, your name will get dragged through the mud, regardless of if you have done
People love to
nothing
talk.
wrong.
People love to talk in this industry, especially.
When I got my work ripped off by another local photographer, her mother-in-law is one of the florists and decorators we work with really often, and like is a lovely person. She told her entire family that I was harassing her. And I was like, well, then here are some screenshots. This is the other thing. It should always be done in email. Like, I mean, I wouldn't call anybody any day.
It might be good, though.
I'd call my mother. But I would not be calling about this because you don't want them to say, oh, like, this person's harassing me. They are claiming that I did this. But really, like, I had that on my website first. Or whatever, right? Like that was my picture. I don't know. It's crazy. But put it in writing.
Yes.
Be kind about it on the first take up. I mean, that's just generally the rule. Yeah. Go and chill.
Be kind.
And then get mean really fast.
Yeah. Be clear. Be clear. Clear is kind. That's the best way forward.
And knowing your own rights makes it much easier to stand up for them. So knowing what you have and knowing that your photos are inherently copyrighted does feel good.
Yeah.
Because I had like crazy excuses. I had a photographer who actually, this was weird, the only photographer ever who actually her website was built by a web designer. Mm-hmm. The designer got in touch with me and I said to the designer, you charged this person, I think it was $900 to build her website. I said, give it back to her.
Yeah.
I said, I don't want any of it, but you better give her all her money back because I have just made her life hell for the last couple of weeks because I literally was like, web designer, sure. But the web designer came back and said, it's just like the newspaper that once it's online, it's out there. So that's like a huge common myth. It's once it's online, it's fair game. And that is just, there could be nothing further from the truth. Are you suggesting that I have to physically print this photo in order for it to be copyrighted? Are you suggesting that my written copy on my website must be hand typed?
And that's such horseshit because
and printed? I don't understand.
OpenAI, they're the ones who created ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. They're fantastic. They make amazing products. Love you guys. Overlords of the internet. Not coming for you. No one's mad. Everyone's happy.
We're a little mad. I think they're probably doing some sketchy
Their
shit.
algorithms for scraping things like video generation, they claim that they scrape the internet. When they're asked what that is, they're like, well, video hosting sites like YouTube.
Like people.
That's copyrighted
material.
That's insane.
Everything.
But because you have enough lawyers, they can get around that kind of thing.
Everything that we use that is AI is based on copyrighted material. All of it.
Yeah.
All of it. When you're making those cutesy little action figures, it's made based on copyrighted materials from real, actual human creators. So that's what I say. Yes, there is like a really real negative side of AI. Unfortunately, it's just making our lives too easy.
We could talk about AI all day. But another point you could come up with, or another takeaway for you as photographers, is to go over the terms with your client before you deliver things like, hey, just so you know, the commercial work we're creating today, you have use for it up to 6 months to a year, whatever your terms are. Make sure that's clear for them.
And you have to remind them so many times over. Yes. You remind them when they first get in touch and you start talking about, like when we first get a commercial client, we always say, where will these images be used? Because it changes how we shoot, right?
Absolutely.
So is this internal? Is this just for you guys to say, hey, we did it? Like we had
Is this on a banner stretching across a building? What are we doing here?
Is this going up in Nathan Phillips Square? Like
most of the time they won't know. Most of the time it's just social media. Most of the time it's website. Most of the time it's not.
But sometimes they will say, no, our intention is for this to be used. Like we want worldwide usage. Yeah. We want, at least 1 year. Yep. We want to be able to use it XYZ, right?
Correct.
And you need to charge accordingly
and agree
to that
upon
distribution,
those terms.
right?
Yes.
And then you have to make it clear anything that goes above and beyond this, it's a different contract than this one currently.
Correct. And if you go outside that, it becomes a copyright infringement.
And of course, everybody always says there's nothing that gives me more of an ick and a bigger pet peeve that I see on Facebook groups and Reddit and places where people go to get advice. Then when people say, what does your contract say? And to which I say, it's too late for that conversation.
Done.
if it's gotten bad enough for the photographer to post it on Reddit saying so-and-so did X and now I'm mad and now here we are and what do I do? The question should never be, what does your contract say? The question should be, how did you tell your client what your contract says? Because of course, we expect them to read their freaking contracts, but what do? Never read their contracts.
Do you read this contract when it tells you to update the new iOS?
I've literally never read it.
No,
It could say, we take your firstborn baby, and I've signed it every single time that there's an update. I don't know what it says. What I will say is it is our responsibility to, as wedding photographers, as portrait photographers, to tell our clients, tell them what we told them, and then to tell them one more time. So I tell my clients when they first reach out about usage, it's in their contract.
Yes.
Then we talk about it again, typically at the wedding.
Yep.
Weddings are the one where I find the most issues. That's why I'm talking about weddings specifically. With my portrait clients are not generally sharing their stuff with other people, but weddings, on the wedding day, I say, by the way, like, I'm going to send you your gallery. You're more than welcome to share this with your vendors. I just ask that you have, like, reach out to me and I'll send you a vendor specific link for them.
Yes.
Then they register. Then I deliver it to them. The communication of the sharing of the images should go through me.
Yes.
Not through my client.
Bingo.
And it specifically says that in their delivery email. It even says it at the bottom of it. It says, if you'd like to share. It actually specifically says, just a reminder, you have limited usage rights to these images. They are for personal use only. If you'd like to share them with anyone outside of your friends or family for commercial purposes,
please let me know.
Just reach out and let me know. Yeah. And my clients are angels about it. They like reach out like, hey, my dog walker wanted to use the photos because they walked my dog on the wedding day. And I'm like, hell yeah, brother.
Oh yeah, dude.
Hell yeah, brother. Send them over. I will send them
People
the
love
terms.
Rules. Yes.
The terms
that they agree to.
But never say, it was in my contract. No one gives a shit. Literally, no one gives a shit. The only thing that they are reading is, when do I get my pictures and how much is this going to cost? That's what they're reading.
Flyaways.
Yeah, that's what they're reading. And if it's not, if you're not aware of that, you will become aware of that when, you have your first client reach out and say, oh, I don't want my photos shared online. And you say you signed a model release, and they'll be like, in what contract? So it goes both ways.
Yes.
The contract is important. It's important in order to be able to uphold things, but it's also important to just reiterate what usage is for us as photographers.
Clear as kind. Listen, we're all wedding photographers here. Most of us. All of us, probably at this point. You listen to this podcast enough, you feel like you have the confidence to do it, and you do.
If you're not a photographer, weird. No,
welcome.
Actually,
Love
we hear from
here.
a lot of vendors. Like, I heard from makeup artists on the weekend that were like, oh yeah, like we should come do your hair and makeup for the podcast. And I was like, that would be so nice.
What are they saying?
No, I was complaining about how much more effort life is for me than for you.
Thanks for doing that, dude. I really appreciate it.
Looking nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just like doing this video podcast. I know it's fun. It's a thing.
No, it is fun. But like Tim, we just joke because, the effort is different. Tim shows up here at least a half an hour early to turn on all these lights.
Well, you came early to turn on the lava lamp today, so that's
I
not
did
fair.
come in a couple hours early to turn on the lava lamp. But he's usually here to like get the set up, and I am getting ready early at home, slapping all this makeup on. But other people do listen to it. So what's up? Shout out to all of y'all. It's nice to see you.
We know that you work for a lot of clients who are not putting their photos on billboards. They're not plastering them on blimps, being flown over football games, United States. Their images are being hung on their walls, and they're being appreciated for generations to come as heirlooms of memories of moments that were important to their family. So we know that. We know that's the majority of our work. But your work still has value.
Hell yeah, brother.
And when you take a photo, it's copywritten.
Inherently.
You've done it. Inherently. You're a creative person, and you should protect your work. So we hope that this has helped you a little bit understand that the value that you create, although sentimental for the most part, also has commercial purpose in and of itself.
And the work that you create for your things like your written copy on your website, or say another photographer happens to get their hands on your welcome guide. All of those things are copyrighted. So your welcome guide, your prep for your engagement photos, all of those kinds of things are yours. You own them. And I have seen a lot of posts from photographers, wondering, should I even do anything about this? And yes, because what goes into us as photographers, we always like to talk about my gear is expensive, insurance is expensive, all of that. Do you know what else is expensive? Life that got you to this point, the experience that it took for you to be able to write something in your own words, in your own language. And I think I probably take that a lot more personally, because that is what has been stolen from me so many times. But I'm like, that is from 20 plus years of education of the planet, of learning women and understanding psychology and
the number of failures you have to go through, and a number of
all
everything.
of that shit. And so for somebody to say, hey, I'm going to just take that's mine.
Thank you.
I take that personally. I take that real personally. So yeah, if you ever rip anything off of mine, so help me God, you will hear from me. The first one will be nice. The second one will be from Jason.
Not so nice.
Yeah.
But please,
take some ownership. Love it. Feel strongly about your work. You should feel like you're an artist the second that you create literally anything, whether you are a part-time hobbyist photographer that just goes out and takes pictures of chickadees, hell yeah. Whether you are a photographer that is just trying to figure your stuff out and you're writing random things on the internet hoping that it's going to catch on, that's also really important. So now you feel a little bit more empowered.
Hopefully.
And
we would love to know in the comments if there's any stories you've experienced around copyright. Please let us know. We're here for the stories.
If you have been ripped off, we want to hear about it. Please. If you have been a ripper off, please tell us, because you know what? We're all here to learn. We'll leave it anonymous. If you've ripped somebody off, hopefully you're not currently still doing it. Otherwise, you will be on my list. You'll be on my list. But if you've ripped somebody off in the past, unintentionally, intentionally, whatever it was, we want to know. Tell us, what the heck were you thinking? So we can share your story here.
Leave them below. Thank you so much for listening.
Leave it below. This has been such an absolute pleasure. We will keep you updated on the Michael Greco case if we hear any further on this very important topic. Thank you so much. Sayonara, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for commenting, subscribing, and liking this video. Goodbye.